I'll allow it.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to Staying Healthy at Home Gardening. I'm Jenny Starr, the Health and Wellness Coordinator at the Kansas City Public Library. And actually, that's not even my title. It's Health and Wellness Specialist. And I'm joined today by Monica Miller, who is a Nutrition Program Associate with the University of Missouri Extension and also an intern with the Kansas City Public Library. So thanks for joining us. Library updates. There aren't a ton. We are open for business, which is exciting. And one thing I can share, a new service that's just started this week on Thursdays at our Northeast branch from 9 to 4, we are offering COVID vaccines in partnership with the Casey Care Clinic. So if you're still needing one of those, you can go pop by there any Thursday for the next couple of months. And that's all from me. So I'm going to turn the time over to you, Monica.
Thanks, Jenny. That's awesome. That's news to me. So that'll be a really good resource for folks because still a lot of people who need to get those vaccines. So hello, everyone. I assumed that you missed me greatly last week. It sounds like I missed a cool thing about seed saving from Amy. And Amy, I'm probably going to pick your brain later because my leek is blooming out front and I want to see if I can save the seeds from that. Since it's a super leek, I planted it last year.
So Monica, Amy Morris is not here today. She's on vacation this week.
Oh.
So we do have an Amy with us. But
hello, other Amy.
There are other Amy's in the world. And so we have another Amy with us today.
My bad, other Amy. You don't have to teach me how to do that. I thought you were Amy Morris. No pressure. Okay, so I've gotten kind of a lot of questions lately about doing kind of small scale gardening and doing gardening like on balconies and patios and stuff. So I thought that would be a fun thing to talk about today. This is something that we talked about really kind of early on last year. So my apologies if this is a repeat for anybody, but I'm pretty sure everyone that is here right now most likely has not seen it. And it's always fun to refresh. I don't remember what's on it, so we're gonna find out together. So just when you're thinking about gardening, just some kind of, realistic things that you want to ask yourself. First of all, how large is the space that you're considering? You don't need a lot of room to do just a little bit of gardening. If you've got like a window in your kitchen that gets decent sun, you can start a little herb garden there. If you've got a little balcony like I do, there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with even a really small amount of space. So don't feel like you have to just automatically rule it out because maybe you live in an apartment or you don't have access to outdoor space. How much light does it get? This is really important. We talk about this a lot. Is it realistic that you're going to be able to grow tomatoes out there? Or maybe do you want to start with some, stuff that doesn't need quite as much sun every day, like lettuces or greens? How much heat does your space get? This can also be really variable. Like if you live in the city, we get kind of that urban heat island effect. So it tends to be warmer. Sometimes it can be cooler. It just, it really depends. If you're trying to grow like tomatoes indoors, you might need to supplement a little bit of that heat with a grow lamp or just even a regular lamp to kind of help it achieve that warmth that it needs that it might not necessarily get inside your home. Is it windy? If you live up on like, you're downtown, you live up on like the 25th floor or whatever, it can be pretty crazy and windy up there. So, it might not be a great candidate for like bell peppers, like we were talking about a few weeks ago. They can get really tall, top heavy, but their root systems are super delicate. And if you get a big gust of wind up on your high-rise patio, you might, that might rip them right out of there. So keep stuff like that in mind too. And then do you have easy access to water? When you're doing your seedlings and stuff, having to schlep like a can or two of water across your apartment to your balcony might not seem like a big deal, but when you actually get down to the matter of it, sometimes you're like, oh, why did I think that I wanted to do this? There are some cool gadgets that you can use. When we lived in an apartment a few years ago before this one and didn't have access to a hose outside, my mom happened to have this little adapter thing that you could screw onto your faucet, like your sink faucet, And then you could screw your hose into that. And I would just actually like run my 50-foot hose through my apartment outside. And I would stand on my balcony and I would just spray off of my balcony and it would hit the raised bed that was right underneath it. So there's things that you can come up with, but definitely try to be realistic. Like you're probably not going to want to be carrying 10 buckets of water, every other morning in the middle of the summer to water your tomato plants, or maybe you do. General tips, you want to choose pots or containers that are deep enough for the plants that you want to grow. Some plants, again, like bell peppers, they tend to have kind of more shallow root systems. Whereas on the other hand, like certain herbs, tomatoes, they will grow like multiple feet long. And that's how they thrive. You want to make sure those pots have drainage holes so that you don't get soggy, sad roots. You also don't want to have any standing water around your residence because that can attract mosquitoes and other kind of icky things that can possibly carry, diseases or other gross stuff along with them. You want to fill those pots with soils that are actually made for growing edible plants. So you don't want to get just like generic like potting soil or topsoil. You want to make sure it's something that's actually for growing things that you're going to eat in it. You want to harvest frequently to encourage growth and production, and you want to water on a regular schedule. What's kind of great about some of these smaller space gardening setups is they are really controlled environments in the pots, even in raised beds, stuff like that. So it is a little bit easier to kind of set and maintain your schedule because you don't have as much like outside factors that are affecting how your plants are growing and the conditions that they're growing in. So that's kind of another benefit. You want to follow the recommended fertilizing schedules for selected plants. Especially if you are growing them in a smaller container, they could deplete the nutrients in the soil a little bit more quickly. But you want to make sure that you're using the right fertilizer because, like, for example, a nitrogen heavy fertilizer is going to encourage foliage growth, so leaf growth, instead of like actually encouraging the growth of the fruits and the foods that we want to eat. So you wouldn't want to use that on a tomato plant or a bell pepper plant because then you're just going to grow massive leaves and it's not going to help the actual thing that you want to eat very much. So it is important to kind of do your research and make sure that you're getting the appropriate fertilizer. Same thing, with any other kind of soil amendments, pest control, disease control. And that's a great thing. You can either reach out to me, Jenny Starr, or you can call your local extension office, the master gardeners, and they will be able to help you determine what the appropriate thing to apply for your situation is. So some really good bets on stuff that you can grow either indoors or in small like patio spaces. Herbs are always a good one. You can grow a lot of herbs year round, even indoors. Leafy greens, same thing. They grow really easily and they can grow really quickly. If you do the seeds and you just do like the little microgreens for like lettuce, you can do those for herbs too. They're awesome to throw on like salad, on a sandwich, whatever, and those will grow in a couple days, even indoors. Tomatoes, surprisingly, can do really well indoors. Chili peppers, Meyer lemons, the little kind of like, they call it a dwarf tree, which we probably need to come up with a new name for that, but it's just kind of like the smaller, more compact, they're almost bushy as opposed to an actual tree. And strawberries do really well indoors. And, the benefit of that is I feel like anytime I've grown a strawberry, something always gets to it way before I do. So that would be another benefit of growing indoors is you're not going to have a bunch of critters running around snatching stuff. Though, I don't know, maybe you do. I had a dog who liked to eat tomatoes once. Herbs, you want to choose a relatively deep pot, at least 8 inches, because most herbs do grow really long and robust root systems. Basil, mint, chives, cilantro, tarragon, dill, they all grow well in full sun or partial shade. So that could be a good option for a patio as well without needing to add any like extra artificial light. Mint, oregano, sage, rosemary, they often return year after year. Especially with mint and oregano, I highly recommend planting that in a separate pot especially mint, you will be kicking yourself in the butt if you ever want to use that space for something that's not mint, because it is so hard to get rid of after you plant it. Oregano, same thing. It's easier to get rid of, but it does grow pretty crazy. Some people actually use that as a ground cover, which people always kind of laugh when I say that, but I'm like, it looks pretty and it'll smell like pizza whenever you walk across your lawn. I think that's a real win-win, and you can eat it. Um, you want to, again, harvest regularly to encourage growth and to maintain the full appearance of that herb, because it can get really long and scraggly and it won't be like filling out with lots of leaves if you don't harvest it pretty regularly. Leafy greens, you can choose what we call cut and come again varieties of greens like loose leaf lettuce, arugula, mustard, Swiss chard, spinach, collards, all of these to maximize space. And what it means by cut and come again is you would just come and you would cut kind of around the plant to take leaves off, and then it's going to keep growing more in the middle. So you don't actually remove the whole plant to harvest it. You just kind of take what you need and then leave it, and it's kind of gonna automatically restock itself, which is pretty sweet. These seeds, they germinate quickly and abundantly, so you're gonna need to thin them out, especially because they're small seeds. It can be kind of a pain in the booty to, count out exactly how many seeds you need and how they're spaced apart. Sometimes it's easier just to kind of eyeball it and then go back in later and thin it out. And again, you can use those, the little sprouts are really good as just like a garnish or a topping on salads, stuff like that. They do tend to prefer cooler weather or shade in warmer climates. So again, great candidate for indoors or porch gardening if you're not getting a lot of direct sunlight. And you can harvest in as few as 4 weeks. So my kind of gardening, instant gratification. Tomatoes, look at that cute little fella. You want to use large containers, about 5-gallon pot per plant. And that's like if you go to Home Depot or Walmart, Lowe's, whatever, and you get those kind of like, I call them paint buckets, but they're just sort of like those general like handyman buckets. Those are usually about 5 gallons. You want to put those tomatoes in full sun, and you want to consider choosing those smaller varieties that work better in especially small spaces. So I'm not going to bore you by reading every single one of these, but these are some kind of cute, like little tiny varieties of tomatoes. You can, if you don't mind the look and if you have the room for it, you can grow those larger tomatoes on a porch, just like you would in a garden. You're just going to need to stabilize them the same way, probably. Cherry tomato varieties, indoors and outdoors, can also be a little bit more of a manageable option because they're not going to get like quite as big and out of control. But just some little cuties here that you can look into that are especially great for super tiny places. Chili peppers, smaller varieties, again, they can be planted in little 3-gallon pots. These do prefer to grow in full sun, but you can also try growing them indoors in a really sunny window. A lot of people have had pretty good luck with that. You want to keep that soil consistently, like lightly moist. You don't really want to let those pepper plants dry out. You don't want them to be wet, but you want the soil to stay pretty consistently moist. Again, because they have that kind of like weak, flimsy little root system, so it doesn't retain a whole lot of water. They tend to be shallow, so you want to provide additional support, especially in windy conditions. Because they really, I swear you look at them the wrong way sometimes and they'll just fall over and all the roots will come out of the ground. Meyer lemons, I've never done these before, but I would really like to. They naturally grow in that kind of bushy full form that's kind of shorter, better for patios and indoors, but they can be pruned into trees like little topiaries. They're super cute. They require a minimum of 8 hours of direct sunlight, and they prefer to face the southwest. Seed-grown trees tend to be a little less healthy and are less likely to produce fruit. And what I mean by seed-grown is if like you have a lemon and you sprout the seed indoors, which is actually pretty easy to do. But they're not as gonna be as likely to produce fruits as the ones that have kind of been I want to say like selected. Jenny Star, what's the word that I'm looking for? They've been
Like cultivated or
cultivated. Thank you. They've been cultivated to perform well either indoors or on patios. You want to bring those indoors when temperatures start to regularly drop into the 50s, and that's what some people have lemon trees that they've had for like a decade, and they just take them out on their patio in the spring, summer, early fall, and then they bring them in and they chill out indoors just as like a cool decorative plant during the winter. You want to try to recreate humid conditions indoors by maybe placing it on a pot of rocks with water. So you would just like have the little tray, fill it with pebbles, river rocks, water, and then put your pot on top of it. And as that water evaporates through the rocks, it's going to provide humidity for your plants. That's a good trick for a lot of plants, like including tropical plants who enjoy a more humid environment. It can take up to a year or more to produce the actual fruit depending on conditions. So even once it's there on your tree, it takes like 9 months for it to ripen. So it is a little bit of a test in patience, but they're super cool. Strawberries require about a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. You want to rotate them weekly for even growth. I mean, that's kind of a good tip for any plant that you can rotate weekly. Especially indoors, again, with your tropical plants, it's great to be able to rotate them every so often so that they're getting the even conditions. Relatively small root systems allow for you to plant them in smaller pots. So you can put about 2 plants in a pot that's 12 inches by 8 inches. And they can be perennial in some zones, or if you take them to overwinter indoors. And everybody loves strawberries, like I was saying, so you might need to invest in netting or other type of cover to protect them from critters because they're just too delicious. Another cool trick to maximize your space is to consider doing a vertical garden. And I think that these are some really neat hacks. This one on the far left, I've seen these at just like Walmart. I've seen them at Aldi's before. And they're just little stacking terracotta looking plastic pots. So even though you've got, quite a bit of real estate there, you're really only taking up maybe about like 2 feet of floor space, and then it just goes up. In the middle, I think that palette thing is really cute. You do need to be a little bit careful if you're doing something like this with shipping pallets, because some of them have been treated with like insecticides and stuff. So this can be a little bit hit or miss, but you definitely want to know like where you're getting them from, if they've been treated or not. But if you can find that, I think that is such a cute idea. And then on the left, it looks like they've got some trellising stuff. And then they have probably gotten like those hooks that you can get to put over your doors to hang coats on. But instead they've hung the little plastic pots on, and they're growing veggies. I think that's there's so many good ideas out there on the internet, guys. I tell you, it never ceases to amaze. Windowsill gardens. So even the tiniest little apartment, probably you can stick a little basil plant in a window somewhere and have some fresh stuff to deal with all year long. You want to start with a pretty sunny windowsill that gets at least 6 hours of pretty bright direct sunlight. Each plant needs about 6 inches of growing space and should be in about a 6-inch deep pot. And you can just get like those cute little cheap terracotta pots, at Walmart, the dollar store, really anywhere. Direct sowing the seeds allows for a smaller pot because the roots aren't going to come in like gigantic already. So that's something to keep in mind. They really don't like to sit in water, so make sure again that those pots have got drainage holes, and then set them on saucers so that the water is not running all over your kitchen or living room or whatever. Just fluorescent lights can help if there's not enough sunlight available. I mean, a grow light is great, but it's not necessary. Just a regular old like desk lamp or something can really help. Avoid trimming more than about a third of the length of the foliage at a time. So if you've got a big long, piece of basil shooting up, just make sure you don't trim it all the way down to the bottom, because that can kind of send it into shock a little bit. And all good things must come to an end. You're typically going to have to replace a lot of herbs about every 4 to 6 months because they are not, they're not perennials. Some of them are, but like basil, chives, parsley, those are not, even in like optimal conditions, those are not something that is grown year round anywhere. We're going to have to, even though we can grow them year round, we can't grow like the same plant year round. I hope that sort of makes sense. Um, so just keep that in mind. Like you're probably not doing anything wrong, but you are eventually going to have to replace them. Some other crops that you can try indoors. So some, pretty good, again, sure bets, traditional stuff to grow indoors is going to be leafy greens. Radishes, I've never tried, but I think that would be a really fun thing to do inside, especially because they grow pretty quickly. Microgreens, carrots, scallions or green onions, mushrooms, which much to Jenny Starr's dismay is something that I played around with last year a little bit. I'm growing shiitake mushrooms on a log inside. I'm going to try it again, I think, later this year. Lemons. And then if you're feeling kind of wild and crazy, you're ready to level up, you can try those hot peppers, tomatoes, or strawberries. I thought this was really cute too. This person grouped their big pots together out on their porch by theme. So they have the salad pot that I think had a lot of different kind of like lettuces, arugula, herbs, the Italian pot, they had basil, oregano, tomatoes, and then the Asian pot, I think it said that there was eggplant, like Thai basil, and some Asian hot peppers. So I thought that was a really cute idea. And you could do that with, just a traditional garden too. You could kind of have like little themed areas. Just some more kind of cute ideas of what people have done in their small spaces with patios. And you can make it look really nice. I think especially this one down on the left where they've got all of the different, all the terracotta pots that match, looks really attractive. Some more cuties. That one in the middle, they've really got their balcony loaded up. And that's it. Does anybody have, I'm always amazed that when I get talking how it's almost 3:30 already. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or does anybody do some like indoor or patio gardening that has a cool idea that they want to share with us? Oh no, where's Linda?
I grow. This is Maury, and
Hi,
I grow some herbs, and also I'm trying to grow some small flowers in our sunroom.
Ooh, okay.
And so I got some wire racks to stack the flowers on, so they're not on the floor. And so it's working okay. I just want to get some more flowers so there can be color.
Mm-hmm.
Besides, I found some things that were like lemon scented or orange scented things that, or mint is good too, and that I can get the herb and use it or just smell it.
I love that. That's really cool, Mari. And you can also, if you're looking for just like pops of color, you can look at getting some like there's like varieties of purple basil and like different colors of herbs even. What kind of flowers are you growing? I've never really tried growing flowers.
I put an African violet.
Ooh.
And I haven't. I mean, it's not doing anything so far, and impatient. And there's some other larger plants that I don't know the name of, but someone gave us those, and so we'll see how it works.
Yeah, you'll have to keep us posted on that. That's really cool. Good for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I loved our talk. I'm going to have to sign off, but thank you so much.
Okay, Amy. See you later. Have a good weekend.
I'm glad I could be the token Amy.
Yes.
We were glad you were here.
Without at least one Amy.
Okay, well, I don't think we have any questions. If I'm wrong, correct me. But otherwise, we will just end it for today and wish you a wonderful weekend. If you're in Kansas City, you're probably going to get rained on this weekend. So enjoy. If you're gardening, it's kind of nice because you don't have
Yes.
water.
Enjoy your weekend off from gardening.
Yes.
Okay, bye, Jenny Star. Bye, everybody else.